What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today we have the brand new 2022 Yellowstone Limited Edition. This is my first time trying a Yellowstone Limited Edition. I am excited to try this. I had a few glasses already tonight because I really couldn't figure out my tasting notes on this. I still don't know if we know it or not, but everybody knows before we get started on all of that. Time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. Yeah, I still have no clue. So that's right, here we are with the limited edition 2022 Yellowstone. I don't know how Pennsylvania can get their hands on this in the same month that it's released, yet we can't get our hands on some bottles for 5, 6, or even 7 months. But we're dealing with this right now. Let's talk about all the things we do know. Number one, it's 101 proof. Number two, it's made by Yellowstone and it's sourced, but we're going to talk about that more in a little bit. Number three, this is finished in Marsala Superiore casks, which is a wine. We're going to talk about that during the Bourbon Bomb of the Week. And last but not least, it's an undisclosed mash bill and undisclosed sourcing. So although we don't know exactly who this is sourced from, we do have a few ideas, right? So this is Limestone Branch Distillery that is bottling this bottle, which is actually half owned by Luxco, but Luxco was bought out from MGP, but MGP distills in Indiana, and this says distilled in Kentucky. So Luxco used to source from Heaven Hill, but are they still sourcing from Heaven Hill? Basically, it's a toss-up. We don't exactly know who this is being sourced from. We just know it is being sourced. Now, Limestone Branch Distillery is also making their own product at this point, but there's no way they have any distillate that's 7, 15, and 16 years old. So we're going to go back to the idea that this is sourced from somebody in Kentucky, and Heaven Hill might be the best guess at this point, although I'm still not sure about that as well. So the one reason I hate when a company doesn't disclose its mash bill is because I'm not far enough along in this process to really discern between a rye spice and an allspice and an ethanol kick, right? You can definitely tell a little bit of a difference, but I think there are people out there obviously better at picking out the difference between those two than I am at this point in my career. But I think for this particular bottle right here, it's 101 proof and it kind of sips right at that 101 proof. I wouldn't say it's under, I wouldn't say it's over. If I were to blind this, I'd put it right in that 100 to 105 range. So I don't really hate this at 101 proof. I think there's other bottles at this proof or even higher that drink easier than this. But at the same time, I can't knock it for being at its proof and drinking at its proof. So let's take one more sip and give this a score. An average burn for an average proof, I'm going to give this like an 8.72 when it comes to drinkability on this. I don't think it deserves to be any higher because, again, there are proofs out there higher than this that drink easier than this. But an 8.72 is a fair spot. And up next, we're going to get a taste on this. And taste on this is really where I get confused because I don't love the flavor profile, but at the same time, I can't really figure out what I don't like about it. It's one of those things like I just talked to a couple of my buddies about sushi. I don't like sushi. I don't know why I don't like sushi. I like fish. I like rice. I like seaweed rolls. Like it all sounds good to me in theory, but at the end of the day, you put it all together and it's just not for me. And that's kind of what I'm experiencing in this bottle right here. So when it comes to the flavor profile on this, you're getting vanillas, you're getting caramels, you're getting a little bit of that red wine flavor, maybe that raisin flavor. You're getting a dryness on this, a nuttiness on this as well. All flavors that I usually like. There's a hint of a licorice flavor on this, which I don't usually love, but I don't feel like it's overwhelming enough that I shouldn't love this bottle. It's just something about the blend, maybe the mixture, that's not particularly for my palate. But at the same time, I can't knock people for liking this because it has all the flavor profiles that you should enjoy. And whether that makes sense to you or not, I understand it's kind of confusing to have something that you don't love, but at the same time, you can't figure out why you don't love it. It's just a confusing bottle for me. I've never really experienced anything like this when it came to bourbon. Let's take one more sip and let's try and figure out a score that we can give this when it comes to taste. Yeah, it's just not for me. I think it's a little too dry, a little too oaky, and a little too much of that licorice for me. I don't like licorice when it comes to my bourbons. I know a lot of people get that flavor profile in a few other bourbons. I've had it myself and other bourbons that I've tried, and it's just not my favorite. So for me personally, and again, go out and try this for yourself if you have the opportunity, because if you like those flavor profiles, you're going to like this a lot more than I do. But for me, I'm going to give this like a 7.23 when it comes to taste on this. And last but certainly not least, that's going to get us into price on this. This bottle comes in at $119.99, and I think that's a tough ask for any bottle of bourbon. Last year, the 2021 release came in at $109.99, so they made the $10 leap, which isn't outrageous if you ask me. A lot of bottles have gone up in price since last year. This is a limited edition. It's 101 proof. It's Yellowstone, so it's sourced. They put this out once a year, so you can only have so many bottles of it. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of bottles out there for $120 that are a lot better than this, that I think you can get even more readily available, and you don't really have to waste your time hunting or being FOMO'd about missing it. I don't know. It's just $120 seems like a tough ask. Let's take one more sip and see what we think. Now listen, if you're a wine person and you like sherry cask finished, you're probably going to like this a lot more than I do because that's what a lot of people compare this to. It's almost like a sherry finish, that dry red wine finish. So you'll probably like this a lot more than I do, but with the taste profile the way it is, drinkability being a little bit above average, and a $120 price tag on this, I'm not going to give it the best score when it comes to price. I'm going to give it like a 7.37. 7.37 seems like a fair spot for this, at least for my particular palate on the 2022 limited edition. But listen, let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn a little bit more about Marsala Superiore, the cask that this is finished in. Cheers, y'all. Just a little bit more and then we're done for the night, I promise. So Marsala Superiore is a red wine, and we're going to talk about Marsala, we're going to talk about Superiore, and we're going to talk about how maybe this isn't just a red wine. This has a bunch of different colors that we're going to talk about. It has a bunch of different age statements that we're going to talk about. But at the beginning of all this starts in a city called Marsala, which, as you guessed, is in Italy, which is why it's called Marsala Superiore, which I don't say very well because I'm not Italian. So when you look up this particular type of wine, it has a lot more information on the cooking side of things than the drinking side of things, which seems to make a little bit of sense to me because I feel like it would be better for cooking than actually drinking, at least from what I experience here. But it got a lot of popularity because of how easy it was and how well it did surviving voyages overseas. And I also mentioned this is a red wine, but it actually comes in 3 different colors, amber, gold, and ruby. And I feel like the gold is what we're getting when it comes to these particular casks because the flavor profiles include dryness, raisins, both of which I get on this, but then again, I have no idea. So this could be any type of cask that it's finished in, all 3 of those colors. And then the other thing is the Superiore tells you about the age statement, which means it's at least 2 years old and 18% alcohol. And the last thing I'll tell you about this wine is it is a fortified wine, but for this particular wine, they add brandy, but brandy is just a distilled wine. So they're taking wine, they're making wine, they're distilling wine, they're making brandy, then they're adding it back to the wine, then they're taking the wine out of those barrels and they're adding whiskey to that barrel. And maybe that's why I'm so confused on the flavor profile here, because I like whiskey and I like brandy, but I don't like wine. But it just seems like a lot going on and it doesn't really mesh too well together. And I feel like that's what we're getting in this particular bottle right here. Maybe this is for you, but it's not for me. Listen, wine, whiskey, brandy all coming together in one glass right here. It's just something that's not very well balanced, not very well put together, at least if you ask me. But this came in at a 7.77, so if you do like it, make sure you play the slots. I just don't like all the blended flavors in this. It seems a little too much, a little too wild, but that's just my palate. And if you do like this bottle, I can't knock you for it. It definitely has some good flavor profiles when it comes to a bourbon. But listen, check me out later tonight if you're watching this on Wednesday at 7:30. We're going live with ThatOneDudeRyan and Hood Sommelier in our first whiskey versus ever. Make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Click that like, click that subscribe button down low. We're pushing 3,000 subscribers. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly. And as always, stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. Yeah, well.